We're live.
We're live.
I'm back, guys. Ooh, shout out.
Yeah, look at this shout. Wait, let me talk about this real quick, okay? This is, can you guys see that? Alter Ego.
Wait, hold on. Let me preface this. If we had sponsors, this is what we would do. Go.
I gotta give a shout out. So like every time I go to Mom's Organic, right next to my house, almost always I get at least one of these Alter Ego. This is the silk velvet truffle, but sometimes I get like 15 truffles and I feel like I'm at like freaking Godiva. And now I'm going to eat said truffle. And you guys, I'm going to get you guys some because like,
all right,
they're just like, balls of love. Yo, Jordan,
it doesn't look dark enough for me. For my, you know, I like my dark chocolate.
I know this one's silk, so it's probably this is more on the milk side, right? But they do a nice dark truffle. Like, damn, is it good? Watch, let me show you.
Aren't they supposed to be like a hazelnut blend?
No.
Oh,
wow. How smooth and creamy that is.
Look at that. Dude, your nails are dirty as fuck.
Yeah, what's up with that? You got to give them a trim.
So let me break down the last couple hours of my life for you. Well, it started off, I got to work today, and I hear this hiss. You know, Jordan, let me hear a little hiss. Right. Like, that's the exact sound that I was hearing. And I'm like, was that my engine? Like, what's going on? No, of course. I ran over something. No idea what this thing was sticking out of my tire. So I figured, then someone texts me, hey, I saw your car, got a flat. So I left work today. And I went and I changed my tire. I was laying on the ground, changing the tire. I had to go get it patched, the whole nine. Whatever. And then I just got home. So like, nonetheless, yeah, my fingers are probably real dirty, but I was doing the, putting in that real work. Jordan, you know how to change a tire?
And welcome to the Chocolate Croissants podcast, everyone. We were going to talk about peanut butter. Now we're talking about knockoff chocolate. And I have
you know how to change a tire?
I've changed a tire with Genna before. And only you don't even know who that is, Matt, do you? That was Stanley's older brother, and okay. That's the only thing that I'm going to share about him publicly on this podcast. Matt, I feel like I haven't talked to you in many weeks, and I think that's because I haven't talked to you in many weeks.
Yeah, what, 2 weeks? Is that it?
Well, in this quarantine, man, you've been like one of the constant presences in my life.
Damn. So you feel like you miss me?
Let down?
No, I'm not going to say let down personally, but yeah, there's a tinge of miss in there. There's a tinge of like a fear of abandonment. I feel like you might not come back.
I'm back right now.
He's back, baby.
I'm back. No, well.
Do you feel like he's really here?
I feel like I've been seeing you every day because you've been like churning out the content, and I've been very pleased, and I've found myself laughing hysterically at the slight things that you've been like posting. For example, in between some of the stories that you posted last night, I believe, or whenever it was, saw it this morning, you had a guy scooping lava into some kind of bowl, and I'm assuming that means it's fire.
No, I just thought that was a really interesting, pretty video to share, and it was a palate cleanser between other ridiculous things that I've been sharing with my voice and face.
It made me laugh. I mean, I woke up. I almost, for the gratitude jar, I almost posted like Jordan Goodman stories on Instagram as what I was grateful for today.
Honestly, you wake up earlier than I do, and when I post in the Global Gratitude Jar on Facebook, if you're listening, you're welcome to join that. That's the first thing I do every morning. I post my gratitude, and I always see yours because the algorithm knows that you and I like each other. So I always see your gratitude before I share mine. And if I had seen that was your gratitude, that honestly would have made my morning and my day.
All right. Well, I have faith that there will be another very, very funny thing that you post that makes me laugh first thing when I wake up, and it will happen. I promise.
Well, I think fate worked itself out in that we're having this conversation. Now, every time I say conversation, I feel like I need to follow it up with unnecessary conversation. And I guess to that point, I've been doing a lot of shit on Instagram. I've been doing puff pastry. I didn't do it this past week because I thought we were going to have like more than one podcast in this format this week. But I've been doing puff pastry more weeks than not on the @ChocolateCroissants podcast Instagram. That's been really cool because it's been a way for me to connect with the Chocolate Croissants community, people that are pretty active in the Facebook group, in a one-on-one live personal way, get to know who they are, what they fuck with, how quarantine has been for them, etc. But also on my personal Instagram @JordanBeatwell, I've been doing these things called unnecessary conversations. It was never a plan. The first one, I only did it to flirt with this girl like 7 weeks ago. And that's how I, court women in quarantine. I go live on Instagram with them. But it felt good. And then I've done 6 more since. And now I have the next month booked out. And here's the lesson that I've found in doing it. Here's the... you guys like to call them like nuggets of wisdom, if you will. For the past 15 years, I have leaned so fucking heavily into these aspects within my personality that are more professional, more intellectual, more empathetic. And because I've been trying to build a career as this mental health therapist who's still a musician at his core. And even though in most of the settings, whether it was at a Ring of Honor or at a therapy practice, I'm definitely the most irreverent, but I still feel like there's these absurd aspects of my personality that just don't get space to be expressed. And I pulled so far on one end, now I'm trying to pull really hard on the other end, and it feels amazing. And I don't think I would have been doing this unless this pandemic provided the time, the energy, and more importantly, the courage for me to start acting a fool publicly.
I think, and Justin, let me just say one thing. I commend you for that because it's a side of you that is very entertaining and enjoyable. And knowing you, I find myself watching parts of these conversations and I'm like in your head, knowing what you're thinking at the moment that you're thinking it. And I laugh my ass off because, and this isn't meant to like make anybody who you've talked to feel bad, but there's moments where like, you're like, this is ridiculous what you're telling me right now, what you're talking about and how you're talking to me. It's absolutely ridiculous. That's what you're thinking. You know?
I treat people like punching bags on Instagram.
And I think it's amazing. I think one of there were certain moments in the Kevin the Drummer interview where I was like kicking the floor, laughing hysterically.
That's amazing.
But here's the thing. I think you can develop this further. The more you do, the more people will start to pick up on your sense of humor. I get it after being around you and talking to you and getting to know you. A lot of people, it might take a little time, but the more that you do it, the more people are going to watch it for those golden moments, I think. And Justin, I'm sure you pick up on it, don't you?
Yeah, because I shared a quick story before we went live that Jordan did one last night with Sir Matt Ellen, and I could have distilled the whole entire conversation, unnecessary conversation, mind you. Thank you. Down to just one moment where Jordan went, and I was like, that was the whole conversation. Jordan, can you bring us back to that moment?
No, you're going to have to go to @JordanBeatwell Instagram stories to check that out.
All right, fair enough. But and I'm curious if others were to watch this, would it be a thing that maybe they wouldn't understand you, Jordan, your personality, until they start to like just start fucking with the ridiculousness of you, just being absurd? And
maybe, but quite frankly, I don't care.
Right, and I get that.
You expressed that what we did last night wasn't your cup of tea, Justin, and it seems like you've enjoyed some of the other ones. My barometer of success for something like that is, do I feel good doing it? And that's it. That's it. It's nice that there's people that enjoy it. It's nice that more people seem to be engaging with it from week to week. But when I finished last night, I was literally buzzing. I was up till 3:30 a.m. I felt much more alive in my body, and that is a fucking win for me. That's really what I'm like going after. And I think as I'm trying to pivot and build a new business in the world as well, that is my North Star. Does this feel good? Does this person feel good? Did that conversation feel good? Does this kind of work feel good? Is this way of relating to people? Like, it's just, I'm asking myself, does this feel good? And that helps constantly, turn. I'm looking for the nautical reference. When you kind of do this, you got to be on YouTube.
Yeah, it's your compass, right?
I'm steering the ship. It's my compass.
You're finding your way. You're following the magnetic pull of what inspires you.
But it's millimeters at a time. It can be as simple as one interaction with one person, and I notice, I have the self-awareness, oh shit, that felt interesting, or oh, that feels good. Let me keep moving further in that direction. And it's a lot of little pivots, and then eventually something opens up and there's field, and you just like kind of run down, and then all of a sudden you're doing weekly unnecessary conversations on Instagram Live.
Did you actually like run through a field last night at 3:30 in the morning? What are you doing until 3:30 in the morning? What is, like, you finished your conversation with Matt, Ellen, then what did you do? Like, what is that time consisted of? Are you
I just do FaceTime dates.
Yeah?
I had a FaceTime date, and then I watched back the unnecessary conversation and started clipping out content that I want to share over the next week.
Did you laugh when you watched it?
Fuck yeah, it's amazing. It's so funny.
We don't have to talk about this if you don't want to, but how was your Instagram date?
Cool. It was super cool. I do it a lot. I've been doing
you're not your Instagram, FaceTime date, sorry.
Yeah. Oh, I don't publicly.
You should do it publicly. You should do. Yeah. That should be your new thing.
It's a whole new angle.
Well, okay, so if you look, episode 1 of it is her name's Hannah. Her name's Hannah, and her and I had like FaceTime a couple times before, but I asked her to do this thing on Instagram Live with me, but I don't know if she realized, but I was clearly flirting with her. I've since told her, like, after the fact, that's what the whole thing was. But I knew she would be fun to play that game with. And, maybe part of the game is that other people are my gravity, and then I kind of punch down at that. But hopefully the idea is that I end up looking like the fool. But I think everyone, besides maybe Kevin the drummer, understands that it's a game that we're playing together. Last night with Matt, he's someone who is far from grounded. And so that was a different dynamic. And that was really fun, actually. It's cool just to find chemistry with people. The three of us have had to find our own chemistry. And every time there's a guest, it's this feeling out process of how we can best bring ourselves to that dance so we can have this fucking like fatal 4-way on YouTube. I don't even remember what dates. Yeah, I do these dates like multiple times a week. It's I'm lonely, guys. I live alone, and there's a global pandemic. It's lonely out here.
Have you, I had a conversation with somebody that I work with recently, and he was saying that now he lives in the UK, but he was saying that it's been so nice now to date. And it starts off like on an app, and then they have maybe a FaceTime meeting potentially, or they don't even do that. They meet up in a public place like a park. Or, they meet at a location, they go for a walk together, and they wear their masks and stuff. And he was just saying, like, how refreshing it was, almost like a reset, of what dating should be like, because you get to go out together, you get to move together, you get to do things, you get to enjoy nature, you're not just sitting there eating a meal, stuff in your face. So have you done anything like that? Have you progressed to that point?
I'd rather not talk about what I've done publicly, to be honest. I'll tell you when we stop recording on Skype. But what I will say is that I think for many people, what can be nice about this is that the physicality or the sexuality, for many, if you are trying to be responsible, not only about your health, but the health of others that you interact with throughout your week, the physicality and sexuality isn't primary. And for a lot of people, when you go on a date, that's the primary thing. So actually connecting with someone socially, connecting with someone emotionally or spiritually, that's where you're kind of starting at in a global pandemic if you're being more responsible.
Well, because there's all this, you have to take precaution. You have to get to know the person. You have to trust the person before you're going to get into that. And that's basically what he was saying, was it's nice to not have that be a factor when you go on a date, at least the first couple times. And he said he met a girl who he really likes, and he's gone out now with her 2 or 3 times, and it's progressing comfortably. So it's interesting. I'm not in that world, but I imagine I'd probably be doing similar things to you. It's like you get to talk to people over FaceTime, and then you kind of see if it's worth it. But
also, even in a non-pandemic reality, I prefer to FaceTime or at least chat on the phone before I meet anyone in person.
For sure.
Because I want to know that at a minimum, I'm very protective of my time. And I've been on too many dates where I kind of knew within the first couple minutes, like, I'm not really feeling this, or worse, like I'm not enjoying this at all. And so I want to know that at worst, if I'm going to take the time and travel to meet someone in person, that at worst, it's going to be a good hang.
Yeah.
Even if there isn't a romantic connection.
Yeah.
So I'm all in on the video chat for all kinds of reasons. But
I think you should do a series called Dating in Public and have your FaceTime dates on Instagram. Even if it's just,
you mean like I go into public like to a park?
No, no. Like instead of doing a private FaceTime chat, you find maybe you have the first conversation FaceTime, but then you migrate it over to Instagram Live, and you guys get to know each other. And I think people would want to tune into that. I would be very interested to be a fly on the wall for those conversations if you found someone who'd be willing to do that with you.
So I guess like Instagram Live would be second base.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, a short second base run. Like you have a quick little thing at first, maybe a 15-minute call or something like that. Or, if it goes where it goes, great. But very quickly after that, the next one is on Instagram Live.
I really enjoy the analogy, Matt, of you being a fly on the wall just because you are such a large man.
It's a mind fuck, huh? But hey, it's all relative, right?
It is all relative.
It's all relative. But I don't know. I would tune into that. I'd want to see your moves, and I want to see like the hero win, and I want to see if the girl is awesome that you're talking to. And I also think that it could be educational for people that don't have the experience or the skills, right? And it's not just like, hey, I'm a dating coach. It's here's me on a.
I definitely would not claim to be that.
No, but it's like, here, I'm on a date, and you guys can watch, and even if it's just a few minutes of it, this is what dating is like in COVID times, on FaceTime or in public, and here it is. Let me know what you think. That could be a great series or a great bit. I think you should do it.
But I feel like when you start taking it that direction, you start losing the integrity of like, I'm on a date now, and this is like me and that person.
Maybe or not.
Potentially.
Right.
Potentially.
And that could be maybe like the fun of it, or the challenge of it is to, see if you can be vulnerable and authentic in that and through that.
Everybody.
Why not? Yeah. And you might not have tons of people watching at any given time, but I think it's kind of cool, and it's new.
I agree that the idea gives me a bit of energy. And so to me, that's information that I should probably chew on it later. And
you
see,
can refine it. You can refine it more.
But I'm not dismissing it entirely. I think it is interesting for sure. And I think a lot of people would be fascinated, around something like that. I think the hardest part might be finding, like partners to play that game with publicly.
Exactly. I was going to say, to your point, Jordan, I think that the most important part is vetting these people properly and actually finding the one that you have that right rapport with. Because Matt and I know, but maybe everyone else doesn't really know, but like you doing the unnecessary conversations, I mean, this is like you tapping into you. As kind of to your point earlier, you said like, this is you kind of pulling at that other opposite end of absurdity, whereas on the other end, you had kind of downplayed that in a sense, right? And now that you're bringing this out, I think to find that happy medium, especially to find that kind of rapport with someone who would be a potential love interest, I think they'd have to be a very formidable sparring partner in that. You'd have to find someone who could play that game with you, because if not, I feel like if you dated someone who didn't understand where you were going with that, you'd always be like fighting this uphill battle of like, but you just don't get me. And like that, and what you do on live is a huge part of your personality, but not everyone knows that stuff.
Yeah, no, that's true. And I think for anyone watching this on YouTube or listening to this on the Stitcher podcast app, look, this conversation that the three of us are having right now, to me, I feel very natural. I feel very normal in the sense that I'm just being me, and Justin is being him, and Matt's being himself as well. And that is hard for a lot of people. And the more we do it, the easier it gets, I think. I'd imagine for others, it would just scare the shit out of them, and they'd kind of run away from the experience. But I think the goal as human beings should be to continuously try to be more like ourselves. And that comes with being comfortable with who we actually are. I often talk about self-awareness, and I often talk about acceptance and self-love and all of that. Chardell Moore, episode 77, Self-Love is a Beautiful Journey. And at least for me, the exercise of putting myself in front of people, whether it's getting on stage or getting in front of a room at a conference or going live on Instagram, that has forced me to, I think for most people, it either forces you to go one of two ways. You start to become fake as shit because the external validation is what you value more, or you become more like yourself because the internal validation is fundamentally more valuable to you. I feel more like myself in this moment than I ever have in my entire life. And I'd imagine the same for you guys too, based on who you are. But I don't know. I think it just comes with age and experience, or at least just for me, it's something that I'm deeply committed to.
Experience. I think experience is where it's at. 'Cause I think you can spend enough time in the simulator that eventually you got to get out of the simulator and go live it in real life. But not everyone's comfortable, especially, Jordan, your personality is a bit different. And look, everyone's personality is a little different, right? If you kind of compare apples to oranges to pomegranates, but you live very much in a pomegranate world, maybe in a room full of apples.
I often feel that way.
Right.
And you live in a pomegranate world, and you're a pomegranate girl.
You're right. And I definitely agree with those sentiments, Matthew.
Thank you.
I'm just a guy with the hair.
I'm just here being myself right now. All right.
I don't know. Seriously, I often feel like the guy with the Wei Ting T-shirt in a world full of Steve Belinkis.
Yeah, I kind of look at you as this beautiful pineapple with the great stuff coming out the top, and everyone else is just kind of a banana.
Yeah. Isn't it weird how one of our science friends could probably explain, but just how quickly the banana.
You want me to break it down for you real quick? You know what that is?
No, I would be bored to tears.
It's ethylene. It's ethylene. It's just the gas.
Oh, it's just ethylene.
It just speeds up the ripening process.
So Matt, it seems
Tell us
like
about your peanut butter.
Peanut butter.
Since we were supposed to kind of be on that tip, and Matt, in the midst of I think Jordan, you were making a point there. Matt was eating some peanut butter. I'm just curious what he's getting down with.
Well, in that moment, peanut butter was more important to me than Jordan talking about himself. So that's what's up. But it's fine. I'm not judging you. I just wanted some peanut butter while listening to you talk.
Judgment-free zone.
Right?
Yo, Matt, go get in your fucking sauna, man.
Dude, I'm legit. It's right there. See it? It's right there. I'm about to. As soon as we're done. Well, not as soon as we're done. But tonight, before I go to bed, I will get in there.
You're becoming more manly by the minute.
It's not manly. It's just, it's it's
healthy.
healthy. Yeah.
Well,
It's,
Healthier by the minute.
that's you maturing into like a fully realized man.
I guess.
It's a compliment. I'm
Thank you.
complimenting you.
Well, I appreciate it, but it's not new. Like, meaning getting in the sauna isn't a new thing. It's just now I don't have to go anywhere to
You
go there.
own one. You've invested into. I feel like there's a hair on my tongue.
Damn. Yeah, I did invest in it, and it's one of the best investments I've ever made in my life.
And that's good self-awareness. That's what I'm kind of talking about. It's
I agree.
There's only so much time we have, especially if we break our existence down into days. So for you to know that like a sauna and an ice bath and whatever else you've kind of been doing more daily as a ritual is beneficial for your overall well-being, then like much respect to you. And that's kind of my definition of you being more like a man.
Thank you. Yeah, there's three things that I like to do every day if I can. If I hit two out of those three, then great. But if I can hit all three, it's great. It's perfect. So it's exercise, ice, heat. That's the goal. If I can get those three wow, I could speak English. That's great too. If I could get those three things done in a day and get everything else I have to do done, then I have no reason to ever feel like I'm not fulfilled, because the other things I have, they're taken care of. I have an awesome house. I have an awesome wife. I have friends. I have family. I have all those things. But I also have to look out for what works for my well-being. And what I've learned is that things like a house is great, but I could really live anywhere. My wife is great, but she's not going to she can make me feel better to a degree. She can't cure my anxiety or my stress or my frustration all the time. I can't rely on other people, no matter who they are, to make me better. I have to find those things that work for me. And I'm not trying to get too serious right now, but I have found that these particular practices and therapies get my mind right. They get my body feeling good. And it's just what works for me. And I enjoy it. So it's not something that I look at like, I have to get in the sauna or I have to get in the ice barrel. It's like the highlight of my day to be able to give myself that time and that space to practice these things and to try new routines and new variations and feel confident that I'm doing good things for myself so that I can be better for those around me. And that's the other reason why I do it. Like, I'm a shitty husband when I don't do one of those three things. And it's not just a shitty husband. I'm just like, I don't, irritable. I need one of those things. Yeah. We went to the beach recently. I didn't have my ice barrel, didn't have my sauna, but I brought my kettlebells and I brought my sandbag. And if I could do a workout every day and then, get in the ocean a bunch of times and be in the water, even though it wasn't as cold as I like, it was enough. But if I just like sat around and just was lazy and didn't do any of that shit, I'd be mad at myself. And that's not about it's not about what we discussed. It's not about being hard on yourself or like, not being kind to yourself. It's deeper than that. Like, I don't know. It's a need. It's something that I have to do every day to feel balanced and have that sense of homeostasis, if that makes any sense.
Complete sense.
It does. Yeah, no, it absolutely does. I think I've thought about this for like a really long time about, and I think, I don't know if you guys currently do this. I'm not currently doing it, but it was something like, it took me a really long time, but I would sit down and kind of write like non-negotiables, things that I need to do every single day. And at least now I just kind of think about them. And when I think about those, as long as and Matt, look, to your point, you hit 2 out of 3. It's not like we're not looking for perfection in this stuff. We just want to keep progressing forward. So as long as we hit some of those, we know that at the end of the day, we're going to feel better. We're going to be better. We're going to be better people. We can give more to others. We can give, more energy. We can be better light workers. Shout out to Chardell. All of that stuff is super important. And it's really, I think, to Jordan's point about like becoming a man or becoming the man, I'm thinking of it that way. You start investing in some of these pieces to just have so that the accessibility is right there. Like they say, the best gym is the one that's closest to you. So if you can just walk right outside, get in the sauna, get in the ice barrel, you can go to your basement and train. I mean, there's nothing better. Then there really is like no excuse because you don't have to put your shoes are already on, right? You're already laced up and out the door because you're already there.
I'm creating a situation where there's zero barriers to entry except my own willingness to get up and do it. And that's something that I can absolutely overcome every time. My excuses are horseshit when it's both sides of me right now are right there. And I got, exercise equipment in the basement that I can go use. It's bullshit. There's literally zero reason why I can't do it. And I can't complain. I can't complain about, I can't work out today. Well, why not? There's something I can do, even if it's going for a walk.
Yep.
And we haven't really talked about it much, Justin, but one of the things I've also been really trying to do every day is really change up my workouts day to day, and never do the same routine, in the same week. Like I might repeat a routine like every week, once a week, but every day is different, and if I think back to just the past couple of days, like today I hit the Peloton really hard. Day before that I did a body weight workout that involved squats and push-ups and some kettlebell stuff as well. Day before that I did a ton of deadlifts and was working on my deadlift practice and like getting my form right and just making sure my cues were right, things like that. I'm literally every day I'm trying to do something different so that I'm giving myself a new thing to do, which is a whole nother reason why I should do it every day. It's a new challenge and a new thing to try to accomplish, And dude, I mean, you have the sauna now at home too. We should definitely talk about that. But it's doing the contrast therapy between hot and cold. It's something that really takes practice. And I approached it overconfidently, almost without the respect that it deserved, because the first couple times I did it to the extreme I was doing it, I got hit real hard. Like it was tough. Like
what was that like?
Well, when you're depleting, you get in the ice and it slows your heart rate down. It literally lowers your body temperature, and then you go in the heat for a while and it heats you up to a point where you are going into heat shock and you're sweating and your heart rate goes all the way up, and then you go right from that instantly back into the cold and it drops your heart rate immediately, and then you go back and it's this crazy back and forth that you're putting your body through very intense stress on the instant. And if you don't respect it, if you don't do it for the right amount of times initially, if like I was doing longer intervals than I should have the first couple times I did it, because what would happen is by the end, when I get back in the ice barrel to end my session, you get dizzy. Everything starts spinning. You feel like you almost feel sick. And I noticed my heart rate, dude, my heart rate must have been under 60.
Oh, wow.
I mean, it was like, boom, boom.
Well, let me ask, when you have those experiences of like being dizzy, do you start panicking?
No, because I know, and that's part of the beauty of this. It's that same thing that we talk about when we have anxiety or like when we're in our own heads. You have to step back and look at the situation and do it from a place of confidence and calm. So when that happens, I'm like, okay, well, I'm in the ice right now and this is happening. It feels a little uncomfortable. I'm going to get out of the ice. And then I make myself get out, and then I sit down, and then I say, okay, what else do I need right now? What would make me feel better? Well, water and fruit. So luckily Natalie's home those couple times. So I texted Natalie. I was like, hey, listen, I'm feeling a little bit woozy. Can you just get me some water and like a bowl of berries or something? And then I just slowly ate it, and I breathed. I breathed slowly, and I just keep the calm, and I keep focused, and I came back to life. And then I was reset back to normal, and that was the challenge. But what I learned from it was, hey, pace yourself a little bit better. Don't be so extreme right away, because this is serious shit. It is. It can have implications. And if I wasn't mentally ready to deal with that stuff, panicking in that situation would have made it so much worse. Mm-hmm. Like physically, who knows what could have happened? It could have caused a lot of issues. So yeah, it's a really, I think back to the times that I've taken like psychedelics, and I'm thinking about this idea of respecting the drug.
And that's funny. I was going to say it's similar to a high where you come to a crossroads where it may turn into a bad trip, and then it's a matter of what do you decide to do in that moment.
Right. And so with that in mind, there's two things there that I've learned. One is that if you do go down a path where things start to feel a little funny, don't panic. Just remove yourself from the situation, and then take the steps nice and slowly to get yourself back to where you need to get to. And that's totally doable. But also respect it from the get-go and make sure that you're listening to your body. And maybe other people wouldn't have this same experience. This is the experience that I had in doing it, even with all my research and knowing what I'm going to do and how to do it and following other people. You never know how you're going to react to it. So that is what I had to be okay with. Even though other people might be doing longer soaks in the sauna and then the ice, and they're doing it more rounds than me, that's fine. They might be at a different point in that spectrum. They may have done it longer than me. They may have gone through all these things that I'm talking about, and I have to respect what works for me and be okay with that and not judge myself for not being on that level. And that's part of this too. But the psychedelic thing, it's like if you respect what you're doing and you almost like pay homage to it in a way, and treat it like a very serious experience every time, then you're going to have a much better experience every time. And that's now how I'm looking at this. And I've been honing the routine, not to keep rolling, but like that's what I've been doing. It's honing the routine for myself.
Real quick, Justin, it's not that dissimilar in whether you're smoking weed or getting in an ice bath. You're changing your state. That's really what it is.
100%. And it's literal stress on your body. Think about when you're out in a really, I was thinking about hot August blues because we're in August and it's not happening. And it's like, it's so weird. It's like the first year in forever.
I've worked like the past 8 or 9. It sucks, man.
Right. And so I'm thinking about that. And then, it's like, think about how hot it can be outside and how much stress that puts on your body. Like you need more water. You might get a headache. You might feel tired or fatigued. You might get dizzy. So when you go and put yourself in a sauna that's 180 plus degrees, like you're forcing yourself to stay in there. That's what you're doing. Like you're putting that stress on your body. That's something you need to respect.
Yeah.
And be careful with. And then same thing with the cold. It's like, imagine you got locked out of your house in the wintertime in your underwear, and it's like sub 30 degrees and you're standing outside. You're going to be stressed about that, and physically you're going to start feeling the effects of that. So when you put yourself in a vat of water and ice that's, in the 30s, it's like, okay, this is real physical stress. And not to go too far down this rabbit hole, but it's been really great to see a lot of people that I respect, people that you and I both follow, Justin, like Ben Greenfield, paying homage to this as well. He's actually been doing this particular week, these past few days, his posts have been all about cold thermogenesis, cold baths, ice baths, cold showers, things like that, talking about the benefits of it. And one of the things that he talks about that he actually posted about yesterday was the mental aspect of doing it that we've talked about on this podcast before, but it prepares you to face other challenges in your life with calm and cool and ease, and it prepares you to be willing to take those risks, knowing that you're going to be okay most of the time when you do stuff like this. And that's a whole other reason. That was the main reason why I got into it. Was how can I strengthen my mind and get away from anxiety? Well, put myself in uncomfortable situations every day and succeed, right? It's up to me. So it's just nice to know. It's nice to see that this is, I'm not the only one having the effects that I'm having. It does work. That's the awesome thing about it. This is legit shit, but you have to respect it.
Yeah, look, I want to make a couple of points. I'm going to try to remember all the different points of all the stuff that, Matt, you were just bringing up. But I think I can say, and I think Jordan would probably echo the same sentiments, that I think we have seen, at least through our open conversations, that some of the things that would have maybe stressed you out before, to your point of what you're talking about, going back and forth, through these two therapies, kind of this contrast therapy, that maybe before you would have freaked out by what you were feeling, that dizziness. But because you've kind of put yourself in the fire, now you have some kind of heightened perspective of how to deal with these things. And you can see it for what it really is, from kind of a third perspective, that like, oh, but like this is caused by me. Like I just did this, but I can come back from this. I just have to slow everything down and kind of just like let my body deal with it and rehydrate and maybe get some electrolytes back in myself through the fruit. And then everything is going to be okay. And I think, look, the thing I keep thinking of is, I always listen to the Jordan in my head that says the body holds all the wisdom. And thank you. And when that happens, I would say to myself, like, okay, so I've redlined it a bit. I pushed it a bit too hard here. So now I need to learn something from this, but I don't have to freak out from this unless it became something that became like a dire situation, right? It can always go that way. We can always push ourselves a little too far. Yeah. But I think we have to just tap into that wisdom and say, but I know what's happening now. And Matt, you and I had this conversation a day that I think you kind of mixed too many modalities into one, where I think you trained, you were fasting, you did the contrast exposure of heat and ice, and it was just too many things. And we just had a really good conversation of like, it would probably be more ideal to do this and then that, and then end with, and maybe switch a few things around to make it a little more digestible.
Yep.
Something else I want to bring up that I find really fascinating is heat feels like, at least for you and I, in some section of the world, a lot of people are talking about sauna usage, heat. Matt and I both had checked out a paper written by Dr. Rhonda Patrick, really extensive, on the sauna, how to use the sauna, kind of the proper dosage, so that you don't end up with the dose makes the poison, right? So you don't end up pushing it too far. And when people like Joe Rogan start talking about it to the hundreds of millions of people who follow him, more people start to become aware, which I think is amazing. And when we brought this podcast back, something that we started talking about was Wim Hof, who I think is really illuminating ice and cold thermogenesis and cold exposure. And it's not necessarily new for a guy like Ben Greenfield, because I remember him talking about where he lives. I think he's in Spokane, Washington.
Mm-hmm.
He would go up into the hills and he had one of those infinity pools, and it would get cold in the wintertime. And he would do things like with his boys, and he's got twin boys. I think at the time they were 8 or 9 years old. He would tell the story where he would start getting them to envision what spirit animal they are and how they're going to be fearless, and kind of instilling all these great things in them that would allow them to adapt and deal with stressful situations. And I think he would say that they would go naked and they would march through the woods up to where they had this pool, but they would have that spirit animal in their head, and it would cause them to not be fearful of anything, and they would go and do a cold exposure. I think it's amazing. Yep, and now I think give it a couple of months, or say a year, and I think that cold exposure is going to be right up there, tipping the same kind of point that the heat exposure has kind of hit that critical, a little bit of a critical mass. It's people are talking about it, because I would sit in the sauna at the gym pre-pandemic, and it was always quotes from like a Rhonda Patrick episode on Joe Rogan, which I found fascinating.
Yeah.
Jordan?
This is the first time it kind of came to mind, as Justin, however you said it, but really thinking like the cold is one pole, and then you got the heat on the other. But what are those isolation tanks, right? Where it's like a ton of salt. Tanks? Well, float tanks, where essentially the goal is to match your body temperature and to take away like sound and light and really any stimulus.
So it's a sensory deprivation tank.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. So that's what I'm looking for. So that's the first time I've seen the connection between that experience and then the hyper cold and the hyper hot, in the sense that when you get that perfect medium, for lack of a better term, that I don't know, like Matt, have you had any experience with that? To me, it seems intuitive that would be the next step.
No, I haven't, but I'm not sure it appeals to me in the same way. I think I'm just going off of my own opinion about it. It's, to me, that comes like I would use a sensory deprivation tank to tune out everything and spend time in my thoughts, because there's no distractions. You don't feel anything. You feel like you're floating. It's the perfect time to meditate, right? I don't feel like I need any more time with that. I have plenty of that. I get it in the ice, I get it in the sauna, and I get it all throughout the day.
So, but I'm here, and I'm just gonna change or provide my own language, because I think with especially something like this, it's the language is key. A lot of people will say doing something like that is tuning out. Again, I'd argue it's the opposite. No, you're actually tuning in, yeah, in a more honest way with the reality of who and what you are. And it's not just being alone with your thoughts, because that just means that the cognitive experience is the end-all be-all. But your feelings, your emotions, your physicality, your spirituality, your sexuality, all of these different potentials that are alive and buzzing, some much more apparent and others much more dormant. Look, that could be just as healing physically for your own physiology than maybe the heat or cold. I don't know, because I haven't researched these things, but sure, there might be a lot more to it than this more traditional sense in the Western context of like being with your thoughts.
You know, well, I will say this. I looked into it a bit. I looked to see if there were some places locally that have a tank that I can go try out, and there are float tanks around. Mm-hmm. And then I looked into what it would take to get my own in the house. And that is not
like 50.
It was, from what I saw, it was like 22 grand to anywhere up to like, yeah.
50. I always saw 50 grand. Yeah. Cause like Joe Rogan has one in his podcasting compound.
Right. Wait, Matt, I thought you were Grammy nominated though.
Oh, snap. So yeah.
If you sell the Grammy nomination, you can get one.
Right.
Tell Jordan.
I don't know. It just doesn't appeal to me in the same way. And I'm not saying I will totally try it. If given the opportunity, I will go do that in a heartbeat and be completely open-minded to it and excited to try it. It's just not a thing that I want to kind of go out of my way to do right now, because the things that I have are right here and they're working really well for those same reasons of helping me get back to center, helping me get in touch with my mind and my body in every aspect of what I'm feeling. I mean, when you meditate, especially for people that are just starting off, one of the practices is starting with your toes and starting to feel your toes, and then feel your feet, and try to feel and get in touch with every part of your body. When you go into an ice barrel or a sauna, you are really feeling every part of you, and the ability to then get in touch with what parts are hurting, what parts feel good, what parts are experiencing whatever feeling it is, for whatever the modality is. Like it gets you in touch with your body and then with your mind, because if something does hurt, your initial response is fight or flight. Like, ow, this hurts, I want to get away from it. But wait a minute. Is it a hurt that I need to get away from? Is it a hurt that I can withstand? Is it something I can put my body through and I'm not going to die or have any sort of permanent damage? And if so, it's worth doing, because you're making it stronger. And every time you do it, you're going to feel the hurt less and less. And you're going to become physically hardened in a good way and mentally tougher to know what your boundaries are, So I don't know if I don't think... Well, I don't know. Maybe you experience those same exact things in a sensory deprivation tank, but I like the fact that there is true sensory exposure in these other scenarios. Like, you are feeling every bit of what's there.
Yeah, look, I don't know, because I haven't experienced that either. So it would be ignorant for me to assume, but I never made the connection. That's the reason why I brought it up, because it seemed like this thing that would be sitting right in the center between these two other modalities.
Yeah, have you done it, Justin?
No. But I wanted to bring up a point. I feel like we're saying a lot about being alone with your thoughts in the float tank, which is the sensory deprivation tank. I mean, because you literally, from all the accounts that I hear, it's because of the way that they heat up the water, and I think they put the salts in it and all these other kind of things. It's like you feel like you're just floating. Yeah. So you're just like floating, and it's pitch black and there's nothing in there. And I think we keep saying that like you're alone with your thoughts, but I think the goal of getting into a flow tank, that meditative state, is to really quiet all of the noise. And I find it interesting because me personally, and Matt, you can answer this one as well, but when I get in my sauna, I typically have my phone with me, and I'm usually doing something at the same time. Recently, I was reading some research papers, or I'm playing music, or I was watching fights. I mean, I'm doing a lot of stuff at the same time, and I'm not really tapping into this meditative state while I'm in there. And this is something that I did actually see a post recently about doing this breath work and kind of losing yourself while sitting in the heat. And this is something you can do in the cold as well. But I do feel like for most people, spending an hour in the flow tank, from the recounts that I've heard, is the quietest they can get themselves and their thoughts to be. Yeah. Although I've also heard, and I forget who this was, it might have been Joe Rogan, it could have been someone else, that they put like a recorder on the wall. I actually think this was Joe. He would say something like he'd go for like a run, and then he would get in the flow tank and he would have a recorder on the wall, and he would think about comedy routines. And when he thought about it, because he couldn't write it down, he would just start yelling out and letting it dictate, or letting this thing record for him, which I think is a really interesting take as well.
But that's no different than the times that I've often had like really productive, creative breakthroughs or insights, whether I'm going to give a speech or when I was going to pitch Ring of Honor for a job, or maybe it's something drum related. It's when you're in that more relaxed state. It's when I'm taking a walk. It's when I'm in the shower. And the state of relaxation makes you more open to insight and more open to creativity. It flows out of you because you're not so distracted by watching TV or playing a game on your phone or whatever else it might be. And I think the float tank is that similar experience, just like on steroids in a sense.
I definitely want to. I would love to try it and see what that's like. But I will say, what you're talking about, Justin, it really depends on my mood when I go in the sauna, because there's plenty of times where I'll go in and I put my phone outside and I just focus on breathing, different breathing routines, and that's incredibly relaxing, especially when it's not overbearing yet with the heat. Where it's not like, and in some ways, I mean, it's even more important to breathe at those moments. It definitely is, to really continue to calm yourself and so on. But the point I'm getting to is this. You can certainly do that. Like, you should try it. The next time you go in your sauna, you shouldn't bring anything in with you and just focus on some very specific breathing routines and see how it goes. The ice barrel, when you first get in, it's challenging because you have to learn how to adjust calmly to it. But once you're in, it is an incredibly relaxing experience. To your point, that's where I've been having a lot of my ideas lately, because once I get in and I get past the first minute or two, then you're there and you can't, my hands everything is in the barrel, except for the top of my head. Everything's in there, and I'm with myself. And I'm feeling what I'm feeling, and I'm tapping into a different realm of my mind. It's hard to explain without doing it, but it's a similar thing to, I guess, what you're describing that you might achieve in a sensory deprivation tank. When you're in that ice, it seems like at first it would be really hard, but once you start getting more experience with it, you can use it as it's so relaxing. It does feel cold, but it's like a good cold, and you can just lose yourself in it. You just got to be careful not to stay in too long, because it can be dangerous, and that's the only reason why you don't stay in for too long. Because
that's
you can
both the heat, and the ice.
Yeah.
But these have been therapeutic modalities for so long. But I think we're now finally bringing them to light, which is awesome.
And look at sweat lodges. Like the Indians would utilize. Like, they're using sweat lodges to bring upon hallucinations because that can be what happens when you're exposed to extreme heat. I mean, I've never done one. I would imagine it's way hotter than the sauna because you're in there with more people. You're dealing with a lot more steam. It's an incredibly, from what I hear, challenging and psychedelic experience. And oftentimes psychedelics are involved in those sweat lodges. But it's used to have breakthroughs and to go to another place, in your mind. And that's definitely the kind of stuff that I'm trying to tap into. Of course, there's definitely days where I have a phone call in the sauna, or I'm listening to a podcast, or I'm reading something. But ideally, I'd like to always be able to tap into, that space. It's hard. I want to get it. I want to see how hot I can get it. I'd like to get it to the 200 degree mark and see if I can be in there for 30 minutes to 40 minutes at a time and see what happens to me mentally in that moment because of it. It's a challenge.
But I guess I'm curious if from the studies we're seeing that like 180 mark, 180 degrees for 20 minutes, 5 times a day seems like the perfect dose.
5 times a week.
5 times a week. Yeah. If that seems like the perfect dose, I guess I would err on the side of redlining it once in a while is okay, as long as it's not detrimental and you can't come back the next day. Because I think there's a brilliant coach, TriStar Gym in Montreal, Faraz Sahabi, and he talks about instead of always blowing out your 1 rep max, why don't you go to 72%, and then you can come back day after day after day, and instead of getting in say 5 reps or 1 rep for the 1 rep max, you can maybe do 10 reps or 5 reps every single day and always be ready to come back to it. Is this something maybe you would work your way up to a once in a blue moon? I push it as long as you don't push it. And then I'll give a great example. I did 45 minutes and my sauna is an infrared sauna versus yours is a rock sauna. So slightly different for many different reasons, but we won't get into it. But I sat on Sunday, maybe a little too long. I hadn't eaten anything, kind of the same thing that you and I had discussed. And I was kind of shot for the rest of the day, unfortunately. And it was tough.
It is. Yeah.
So I kind of learned from my mistake. Yes, Jordan.
He's just showing us. Yeah.
I'm showing interest. I was tired of nodding my head and just figured I'd lean.
He's leaning in.
Yeah, for anyone who wants to see Jordan really lean into the conversation, youtube.com/chocolate croissants.
Do we really have to say backslash at this
point? You never know.
Slash. You never know. Slash.
What if you slash the other way?
Here's the thing, though. That's if you go on a laptop. Most just do it on their phone. So I think you just got to search Chocolate Croissants podcast in the YouTube app.
Sure. Matt?
So I've been doing that to what you're talking about. That's what I've been doing with the ice. Most of my soaks are probably comfortable. I shouldn't say comfortably, but that 73% you're talking about, that coach is talking about, is at probably around 40 degrees. Let's call it between 40 and 45 degrees. It's cold, but I can withstand it for a good amount of time, and I can do it every day, and it's not going to make me shot. When you get into the 30s, that's when it becomes a red line experience, and colder than that. It's tough. Same thing with the heat. 180 to 185 is where this sits now. Is where I get it with pouring, especially when I pour water on the rocks and it gets really hot. Absolutely. I mean, that kind of heat almost feels like a fire right in front of you. It's pretty intense.
Where's your timing coming from? Of I've heard you tell me a few times, or you've talked about you sit for pretty long bouts in the ice. And I was watching someone else the other day get into an ice bath, and they were like, yeah, sweet spot was 2.5 minutes. After that, it's you're losing the sweet spot. So I've seen you sit for much longer. Where's that coming from?
It's just what feels right to me, what feels good. I'm not pushing myself to a point of where I'm exhausting it by any means. I think I enjoy it at that point, and I feel the effects. Yeah, you have to remember too, there's a lot of people that are out there that are talking about this stuff now that have to, rightfully so, be very careful in what information they're putting out there.
Right.
In my private conversations with people who are experienced with this, They talk about spending similar amounts of time in these situations that I am.
Right.
But when you're posting about it, when you're talking about it, you have to be very careful. Now, that's not to say that you can't have the effects in 90 seconds or 60 seconds. You totally can. But you do get to a point where you can withstand more, and it feels good to do so. So why not do it? It's not detrimental. It's still very beneficial. And if you can do longer, then do longer. But that being said, I have kind of nailed down a routine for myself that I've been following, and it's basically 10 minutes soak in the ice, and then I'll do 30 minutes in the sauna, and then I'll come out and I'll do another maybe maximum 5 minutes in the ice, and then I'll do another 30 minutes in the sauna, and I'll end it with 2 minutes in the ice. That's it. And I mean, this requires also.
This is from you experimenting a bit, because I think for everyone it's going to be a little different, and I think that the outcome you're looking for is a little different. I think you specifically, this might not be as much, and I know this is part of it, but therapeutic for your body. But this is also very therapeutic for you, kind of callousing your mind to think a certain way.
Right. And I'm not. Look, this is just what I came up with. I didn't get that from anywhere. I'm going off of. Yeah, and I'm also going off of a bunch of different routines that I've seen and trying to hone one for myself. I tried another one the other day where it was a 60-minute sauna soak, but every 10 minutes I would get out and I would plunge in the ice for 60 seconds. So every 10 minutes I take a minute in the ice and I come back for another 10 minutes. And I like that, but I found that it wasn't, when you sit in the sauna, it takes a certain amount of time to really hit that particular point where you start. I don't know if you get this too, but there's a moment when I'm like, there it is, and you're pouring sweat.
Oh yeah.
And it's like a good feeling, but you've reached that point where it's your body has hit that perfect point where now it's flowing and now you're really ripping. I
love. I stand up and I do a little this. I dangle my hands down and I see beads of sweat falling off my fingertips, and I'm like, wow, what a gift this is.
Yeah, and that's it is a sense of gratitude you feel when you reach that point, because you feel like you're really doing something good for yourself, and you physically can feel it mentally and with your body. But the point I was making is you don't really get there when you're plunging in the ice every 10 minutes. So I like doing longer heat soaks with spaced out ice in between, but it's ice, heat, and then I end in the ice, and then I come out of the ice and I let my body just warm up naturally, just get working the way it should.
Have you done this naked yet?
Ooh,
no.
I'm interested now.
I feel like that would be a whole new experience, and I feel like this could be is this a thing you could do on your deck?
Probably late at night, but I have neighbors all around me, so it probably wouldn't be a good idea. But I'm wearing a bathing suit, so it's almost there. I don't know, but what's been cool? Natalie's getting addicted to it, which is she'll be like, "Hey, are you getting in the ice today? Can we time it around a workout?"
Ooh.
She's getting into it, and this is something I wanted to bring up. Not only now that she's done it a couple of times, is she starting to really like it, and it's becoming a thing that's kind of getting her, it's hooks in her. But think about how many times we've talked about these practices in the past bunch of months. And I think about conversations I've had with other friends of mine asking me about this. I was somewhere today where literally that's all they're talking about with me. Hey, I saw your Instagram and you're in the ice. What's that about? And I'm teaching master classes with drum students, and they're going, "Yo, can you talk about the ice? What's up with that? Tell us about it." There is some sort of primal interest or instinct that pulls people towards these kinds of things, where initially the response is, "Oh my God, I could never do that." But then that was my wife's response initially. Wow, I'm not doing that shit. No fucking way, And then I said, for your birthday, for my birthday, one of my presents is, I want you to do an ice and a sauna soak with me. And you can do it for even 30 seconds, but I just want you to try it. And then that's what we did. And then now it's something that she's like, wow, that actually makes me feel really good. I want to do it more. So why are people so interested in it? I think it is a primitive thing. And I guess the more if someone's willing to try this, even with just a cold shower, I think they would realize the benefits of it pretty quickly, and you'll get hooked. It's easy to get hooked. I mean, think about you now in the sauna, Justin. Like, isn't it something you look forward to every day, pretty much?
And look, and you know, for me, it started with, it's something I always wanted, right? And this is another, like, quote unquote gift of the pandemic. It was something I always wanted, and I talked about, and I thought maybe one day it would become a reality. But I still just thought it was a thought. I would go to the gym and pay the fee to go to the gym monthly, and I would use the sauna. And that was like the primary focus, because we've, you know, for a long time had a home gym. So it wasn't as much of a necessity to go to the gym to use what they had there equipment wise, but they did have a sauna. And then I had a muscle strain a few weeks to maybe now airing on like 8 weeks ago. And with that muscle strain, I really just kicked it into high gear. And I said, you know what? I think the therapeutic benefits of the heat would really make a difference, because I found that when I would get in the shower and I would just want to lay on the ground and have the heat hit the muscle. And when I got out, it was so much more loose. And I was like, all right, I have to give myself, you know, I've got to get the gift of heat. I've got to give that to this muscle. And so I did some research, and I took a shot on the sauna that I found. And then I couldn't just stop talking about how I was so still like in awe of the fact that, like, what a gift. I got this thing for myself. And this is something we were talking about earlier in the conversation, you know, kind of just like that realization. And I was doing this investment in myself, investment in healing, and then kind of, you know, preventing anything further, always having this here. And it's great, Matt, to your point. One, you're always looking forward to it. Two, I sleep better when I do it. Three, that great sweat always makes me feel so much better. And then four, one of the biggest ones is that I see Carly. Carly goes out and is training, you know, 5 or 6 days a week in the gym. And then I'll also say, you know, we'll have that conversation like you and Natalie, and we'll say like, hey, you want to go sit in the sauna? And it's like, yeah, and we sit next to each other, and it's funny because, like, you know, it's great. We talk about things like I sweat really quickly, and I think, Matt, you do too.
Yeah.
And it takes Carly a little bit longer, but when she starts getting the beads bubbling up and they start falling off, it's like, oh yeah, now you know it's getting good for everyone, because now we're just letting it all, you know, all of it's coming out, and you just you feel so good.
I want Jordan to do it. Like, I don't know if have you ever really sat in the sauna for a therapeutic reason?
JCC?
Yeah, it's been a very long time, and the health benefits were the least of my interest in doing so.
Yeah.
Did you guys listen to the podcast Tim Ferriss and Rick Rubin, where they did the contrast therapy?
Yep. And they had to get like the microphone.
The microphone kept trying to like overheat on them. Yeah. I would be, as long as everyone felt safe, you know, in this pandemic, if the three of us were to get together, I would find it really interesting. This was kind of the two push I wanted to make. One, I think it'd be awesome if we were to do a podcast like that. And two, I think if we can find a place where we can safely do float tanks, I think we should go and all at least have a round table about our experience, because something none of us have experienced, I think we should go experience together.
That'd be very cool. Yeah, I'd definitely be into that. If we can find a spot that's local enough. And I like I said, I'll look again, but there's definitely some places. But
they're in the area for sure.
Yeah, that would be great to try. And I agree. I mean, I think it would be a very fun experience. But I would also want you guys to, I mean, one, it would be good for you guys to have your own practice a little bit with one of those two modalities, right? You know, like Jordan, take some cold showers before you're going to come over and jump in the ice while we're trying to do a podcast. And, you know, if you can, pop over here or pop over to Justin's and get in the sauna for a couple times first, just so you can get used to it and know what to expect, because it is no joke. It's not like I think Tim Ferriss and obviously Rick Rubin have some serious experience going into those things. I think we should have all of us should have a little bit more experience, because we don't want to have a podcast where, and I'm only singling you out, Jordan, just because you don't do these things every day, where you're not prepared for it and it doesn't have a good effect, because that's another reality. Oh, George, my dog's.
Send in the clowns.
There we go. Yeah, but you know what I mean. So, but let's do that for sure if we can. But let's like practice first. For sure.
We'll plan it. Yeah, I think it's important to have a baseline going into these things. At the same time, I also think kind of you got to start somewhere. You know, so instead of doing so much exposure, you could get in and get right out.
Yeah, I want to ask Jordan something. I want to ask you. You've been sitting here listening to me and Justin talk about these things.
I actually Googled VH1 Love and Hip Hop as you were talking about these things.
All right, well, that answers my question. But right. I mean, in all seriousness, is any of this enticing to you, or like, are you interested in actually trying these things?
Yes, absolutely. I think it would be a worthwhile experience for many different reasons, most notably for my own health and just the exploration of the potential of my body and its health. I also think if we record something like this, it could be highly entertaining. We have to do it at this point. So basically, I need to like try the sauna beforehand and do some cold showers because I don't like the times in which we've like publicly said, "Hey, this would be a great idea," and yeah, we're gonna do it, and then we don't. So like we have to actually do this now.
Okay. So let's make a plan and we'll do it.
Okay.
Yeah. So we'll talk, the three of us, and Jordan will help you kind of get your toes wet,
so to speak.
Nice. So I do want to say, I've never seen it, and I'm not even quite sure what it's about. But Love and Hip Hop on VH1, it debuted on March 6th, 2011, and it says final episode date. So I don't know if that's like the most recent season finale or just the entire series finale. Was March 9th, 2020. They really kind of bowed out right before the pandemic hit.
Does it say what time it aired?
No. Well, I mean, even we were supposed to have an interview today, and as you know, Justin, like there's different time zones.
Right.
So
we learned that the hard way.
It's okay. No judgment.
So to speak.
No, of course not.
I'll look that up too on my own time. But hey, we should wrap up. So Jordan, thanks for letting Justin and I nerd out on this stuff. But let's do this. Let's do this thing, and let's get you acclimated a little bit.
Okay. You know? So hot shower, and then 30 seconds cold, and then back warm again, and then 30 seconds cold, and then back warm again.
I'll call you. We'll talk about it.
Oh no, I listened to you. Real quick, plug that podcast you did. The Two Guys and the Gent Drummer. That was like a really good podcast. I texted you to say like, hey, good job. Hey, I appreciated what you shared about Justin and I. But it was a well. I don't know. Justin mentioned earlier, Matt, about I guess the ways he's seen you grow or mature or evolve, and me listening to that conversation and even the one that you did with Finn McKenty on the Punk Rock MBA a few months ago, I noticed it too. You have both just matured as a human being, but you're also able to talk about it and articulate your experiences in impressive ways. And I think if anyone is listening at this point in this episode, then it would be well worth your time to listen to the conversation that Matt's about to plug.
Thank you. That was on the Everyman podcast, it's called. And then obviously the Punk Rock MBA podcast, if you want to check that out. Both were completely different conversations, for sure. One's like business advice, I guess, and life advice, and one's just catching up with a friend, an old student and friend of mine.
And football player.
And football player. And that was an enjoyable conversation for sure. And I'm glad you guys liked it. I spoke from the heart, and I said, whatever came to me naturally. But going back to what you should start with, if anybody's listening and also wants to join Jordan on his journey of getting involved in cold showers, just take a normal shower, and at the end, you gradually go from hot to warm and get comfortable with the warm temperature, and then go from warm to lukewarm to kind of coldish, and don't rush it. Sit with it at those temperatures and let your body adjust and breathe calmly and focus your mind on the fact that it's going to get colder and you're going to be okay. Mm-hmm. And then as you get a little bit colder and colder. Eventually, you'll turn it all the way cold. And when it gets to that point, breathe naturally, breathe calmly, don't hyperventilate. Try to move your body and try to pay attention to whether your body's tensed. Like if you're like this, try not to be. Try to relax in every way. Let yourself know it's going to be fine. And then, if you can do 30 seconds to a minute of that for a good week or two, then that's great. And then you'll feel comfortable gradually increasing the amount of time to the point where if you get to a point where it's like you can do a hot shower all the way cold, back to hot, all the way cold, and you're doing your own contrast therapy in the shower, the next thing to try would be get in the shower when it's cold. Literally just turn it on as cold as you can and get in and see how long it takes you to adjust. And that would be like, a huge step in this. But you got to listen to your body too. And just remember, the focus is to be calm and centered and to almost meditate with it and know what you're putting yourself through.
Yeah, Benny Greb did a really good job on the episode that we had with him a few months ago of unlocking that insight for me and truly understanding that is the point of these experiences.
Yes, it truly is. It's finding calm in chaos. That's one way to describe it. And last thing I'll say is that, you don't want to be looking at a timer necessarily. So what I would do is kind of
You sing Lizzo.
I sing Lizzo. Right. Once I get to that point where I'm feeling comfortable and I'm where my breathing needs to be, I would sing a melody in my head.
Can we hear a little? Can we hear? Yeah. Please let me hear a little bit. I'm closing my eyes for anyone who's watching this, and I would just
sing the melodies
in the shower. Going,
shut the fuck up, just do it.
Yeah, I would just go da 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 da, right? Just sing that chorus over and over.
Why'd you stop?
Because I don't need to say. Everybody's heard that fucking song. But you know what else you should do, and this is a Wim Hof thing, is like if you're feeling it, you should dance. Like bob your head. That's real control, real relaxation. In the cold, obviously being careful in the shower, but like move your body and like
that's opening up and inviting the experience.
Right, exactly. So, and when I started getting really into it, doing like 10-minute cold showers, I would put on either an album that I like and listen to 5 songs that would add up to 10 minutes or 15 minutes or whatever it is. And, you can jam in there. And that's how you know that you're able to enjoy it, because you're no longer stressed in the same way by it. It's stressful, but you can manage it, and then you can enjoy yourself too.
Yeah, so. You did a good job. I feel like I'm more excited about trying it now.
It's fun. It can be fun if you aren't afraid of it, and
and you get acclimated to it. I always found that I like just the therapeutic meditation of just counting the numbers. I gave myself a 30-second count, and I just kind of zone out and try to just be like, I'm present here, but it is what it is, and I'm fine. It's and it might suck for a little bit at first until you get acclimated to it, but like anything with time, you get used to it.
Totally. Yeah, you will.
And Jordan loves to take baths. I could see you just turning the cold water on and just getting in the bathtub after you try the shower.
All right.
You'll get to that point.
All right.
Will. You'll get to that point. When you can do a 10-minute cold shower, you'll want to take it to the next level, and that's when you get the ice going. Because then it really drops the temperature. Then you start to feel what it's like. But
all right, we're going to make this shit happen. Facebook.com/group/chocolate croissants. It is a Facebook group. We are on YouTube. You may be listening to us right now on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts, on Google Podcasts, on Stitcher, on Podbean. But you can also see the faces of myself, Justin, and Matthew. YouTube.com/chocolate croissants, or search Chocolate Croissants Podcast on your YouTube app. Hey, if you're on YouTube, do us a favor and hit that subscribe button. Wow. But for real, if you can subscribe, we'd really appreciate it, quite frankly. That is it. If actually here, we don't know. It's kind of a cliffhanger of sorts. VH1 Love and Hip Hop. Is it just the season finale or is it the series finale? If you know, please, quote, sound off in the YouTube comments this upcoming week. I will look forward to the perhaps one person, likely Kevin the drummer, being the one to do that. Thank you so much for giving us your time. Thank you so much for giving us your attention. We hope you are well wherever you are in the world. Please be kind to yourself. I really enjoyed taking these bells and just throwing them across the room. We will see you next week for another episode of the Chocolate Croissants podcast, and we'll see you right now in real time in the Facebook group. Okay, goodbye and bye-bye.